When Sin Yen was about 8 years old, he and his little brother were one fine day enjoying a game of battledore and shuttlecock on the green lawn, which their father had reserved as a playground for their use. The lawn was a part of a very elaborate garden laid out with many rare flowers and ferns and exquisite plants in costly porcelain jars. The whole was enclosed behind high walls. It was a very warm day and the garden gate had been left open, so that the breeze could better blow within. A man stood outside the gate, watching the boys. He carried a small parcel under his arm. "Will not the jewel eyes of the honorable little ones deign to turn my way?" he cried at last. Sin Yen and Sin Yo looked over at him. "What is your wish, honorable sir?" asked Sin Yen. And the man replied, "That I may be allowed space in which to spread my mat on your green. The road outside is dusty and the insects are more lively than suits my melancholy mood." "Spread your mat, good sir," hastily answered Sin Yen, giving a quick glance at the small parcel, and returning to his play. The man began quietly to unroll his bundle, Sin Yen and Sin Yo being too much interested in their play to pay much attention to him. But a few minutes passed, however, before the stranger touched Sin Yen's sleeve, and bade him stand aside. "For what reason, honorable sir?" asked Sin Yen, much surprised. "Did not you consent to my spreading my mat, most ingenuous son of an illustrious father?" returned the man. He pointed to his mat. Of cobweb texture and cobweb color, it already covered almost the whole green lawn, and there was a portion yet unrolled. "How could I know that so small a bundle would make so large a mat?" exclaimed Sin Yen protestingly. "But you should have thought, my son," said the father of Sin Yen, who now appeared upon the scene. "If you had thought before consenting to the spreading of the mat, you would not, this fine afternoon, be obliged to yield your playground to a stranger. However, the word of a Tsin must be made good. Stand aside, my sons." So Sin Yen and Sin Yo stood aside and watched with indignant eyes the deceptive mat unrolled over the whole space where they were wont to play. When it was spread to its full capacity, the man seated himself in the middle, and remained thereon until the setting of the sun. And that is the reason why Sin Yen, when he became a man, always thought for 3 minutes before allowing any word to escape his lips. The heart's desire. She was dainty, slender, and of waxen pallor. Her eyes were long and drooping, her eyebrows finely arched. She had the tiniest golden lily feet and the glossiest black hair. Her name was Li Chung Oyam, and she lived in a sad, beautiful old palace surrounded by a sad, beautiful old garden, situated on a charming island in the middle of a lake. This lake was spanned by marble bridges, entwined with green creepers, reaching to the mainland. No boats were ever seen on its waters, but the pink lotus lily floated thereon and swans of marvelous whiteness. Li Chung Oyam wore priceless silks and radiant jewels. The rarest flowers bloomed for her alone. Her food and drink were of the finest flavors and served in the purest gold and silver plates and goblets. The sweetest music lulled her to sleep. Yet Li Chung Oyam was not happy. In the midst of the grandeur of her enchanted palace, she sighed for she knew not what. "She is weary of being alone," said one of the attendants. And he who ruled all within the palace save Li Chung Oyam, said, "Bring her a father." A portly old mandarin was brought to Oyam. She made humble obeisance, and her august father inquired ceremoniously as to the state of her health, but she sighed and was still weary. "We have made a mistake, it is a mother she needs," said they. A comely matron, robed in rich silks and waving a beautiful peacock feather fan, was presented to Oyam as her mother. The lady delivered herself of much good advice and wise instruction as to deportment and speech, but Oyam turned herself on her silken cushions and wished to say goodbye to her mother. Then they led Oyum into a courtyard which was profusely illuminated with brilliant lanterns and flaring torches. There were a number of little boys of about her own age dancing on stilts. One little fellow, dressed all in scarlet and flourishing a small sword, was pointed out to her as her brother. Oyum was amused for a few moments, but in a little while she was tired of the noise and confusion. In despair, they who lived but to please her consulted amongst themselves. Oyum, overhearing them, said, "Trouble not your minds. I will find my own heart's ease." Then she called for her carrier dove, and had an attendant bind under its wing a note which she had written. The dove went forth and flew with the note to where a little girl named Kuyum, with a face as round as a harvest moon, and a mouth like a red vine leaf, was hugging a cat to keep her warm and sucking her finger to prevent her from being hungry. To this little girl the dove delivered Oyum's message, then returned to its mistress. "Bring me my dolls and my cats, and attire me in my brightest and best," cried Oyum. When Kuyum came slowly over one of the marble bridges towards the palace wherein dwelt Li Chung Oyum, she wore a blue cotton blouse, carried a peg doll in one hand and her cat in another. Oyum ran to greet her and brought her into the castle hall. Kuyum looked at Oyum, at her radiant apparel, at her cats and her dolls. "Ah," she exclaimed, "how beautifully you are robed! In the same colors as I. And behold, your dolls and your cats, are they not much like mine?" "Indeed they are," replied Oyum, lifting carefully the peg doll and patting the rough fur of Kuyum's cat. Then she called her people together and said to them, "Behold, I have found my heart's desire, a little sister." And forever after Oyum and Kuyum lived happily together in a glad, beautiful old palace, surrounded by a glad, beautiful old garden, on a charming little island in the middle of a lake.